Hello, I'm Robin. I'm a certified financial planner, certified private wealth advisor, wealth manager by trade, and your rich auntie. Today I'm talking about Social Security. I received a really interesting article yesterday about changes proposed to Social Security to increase the solvency of Social Security. In case you haven't heard, Social Security is expected to run into serious financial difficulty sometime in the next decade, and ideas are being floated to make Social Security solvent again. The latest idea that is being floated is basically revoking spousal benefits. If you are married to someone 10 years or more, you are allowed to collect Social Security based on your spouse's earnings. One of the wildest things I've seen as a financial advisor, I had a client who was married and divorced 3 times during her life. Each marriage she stayed in for a significant amount of time. She was able to collect 3 Social Security checks based on each of her husband's earnings in Social Security. And it made me very curious to learn more about the spousal benefit clause in Social Security. So just a word about the history of Social Security. Social Security was founded by President Roosevelt back in 1935. The first individual received their Social Security check in January of 1940, and it was funded from a combination of workers' tax and taxes on the companies. There are some pretty serious inequities built into Social Security that disfavor Black workers. When Social Security was instituted in the 1930s, 1940s, 65% of Black workers were excluded from the program because of the categorization of work. There were domestics, agricultural workers, people who fell into those categories. From my own personal life, my grandmother was a domestic for many, many years, and I remember her being retired and relied on the railroad pension of my grandfather, her husband. My grandfather was a Pullman porter on the train system, but she could not collect Social Security based on her earnings as a domestic, even though she was a domestic for many years. So after my grandfather died, my grandmother actually had to work for many years as a clerk in a store so she could get her own Social Security earnings. That story played out over countless times in the African American community and helped perpetuate a wealth inequity between white communities and African American communities. Spousal benefits, when I looked into it, this just wasn't a benefit I quite understood. Going back to Social Security and how it works, Social Security looks at your top 35 years of earnings. So when you're working that high school job and you're paying taxes on that, you are receiving credits for Social Security. But when you go to college and grad school and you get better jobs and start earning more money, you start paying more money into the system and your benefits start increasing. So one thing that people don't know, Social Security used to send you these statements in the mail outlining your benefits, but they stopped doing that about 10 or 15 years ago. You can go to mysocialsecurity.gov at any time, put in your personal information, and pull your Social Security statement. I strongly suggest every person, and I do this for all my clients and I do it for myself, each year you go in and you check your Social Security statement. Why? Social Security makes mistakes. They receive their information directly from the IRS, but sometimes that doesn't happen. I've had clients who found out that their identity was stolen by a Social Security statement that looked dodgy. I had clients that had a big error, like several years of work were not recorded on the Social Security statement. It's much easier to correct that the year it happens versus you being 65, getting ready to retire, realize 20 years ago the IRS did not accurately report your income to the Social Security Bureau, and then you have to go back 20 years to try to correct the matter with the Social Security office. And I actually had that happen with a client once, and they didn't have the documentation from 20 years ago, so it was out the window, it was gone. So please do get your Social Security statement from mysocialsecurity.gov every year. Check it over, make it sure that it's 100% accurate. So back to spousal benefits. So when I learned more about spousal benefits, I saw the problems with this. You have a whole category of people, stay-at-home spouses, they took care of the kids. They may not have worked, or they may not have worked a great deal. And while both spouses are alive, and the spouse that had either a small or non-existent paycheck history can collect 50% of their spouse's benefit. Okay, that's a big problem. You have people who really didn't pay into the system collecting benefits from the system. And what really surprised me is, even when a couple divorces, if you've been married at least 10 years, you're still allowed to collect on your former spouse's Social Security earnings. And your spouse is allowed to collect their full Social Security benefits based on their earnings. My first question was exactly, where is this money coming from? You have two people who are basically collecting off the work of one individual. I also thought this clearly does not benefit African Americans. Why? African Americans are far less likely to be married than other populations. And so myself, if I were to die, I can't give my benefit to a friend or to someone who has a very meaningful relationship with me. The government just wins and takes my money. How is that fair that people who are married get to basically split their benefits with their spouse, even if they're no longer married to their spouse, and they're able to collect the benefits, their full benefits themselves? How are we paying for that? The reality is, we're not paying for that. And it's one of the many things that we are examining and taking a look at Social Security and how benefits are dispersed to the American population. Now, I think all people of all ages realize that Social Security needs to change. Now, the debate comes with what needs to change, in what order, and when. Okay. Myself, as a financial advisor, I know a thing or two about retirement. I've seen a bunch of Social Security statements, and here's my idea on what needs to change with spousal benefits and with other things. I think Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zers are going to have to get used to the concept that we're going to have to work longer. This idea of retirement at 65 that is seared into the American consciousness just needs to change. So under the current situation, full retirement age for Americans is 67. If you were born before 1960, it changes a little bit, but right now we're going to say full retirement age is 67. As a millennial Gen Xer, I'm willing to work a little bit longer and say that's probably going to have to change. Full retirement age will have to change to 69 or even 70. The second thing I would say is that we have to get rid of this early retirement at age 62. 1/4 of Americans start taking their Social Security at 62, and it's just not feasible. We're going to have to move early retirement to 65. So that would make early retirement for Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zers 65, full retirement 69, 70, and then retirement plus would be 72 to 73. That'll fix part of the problem. It's not going to fix all the problem. Another thing is the current wage cap on Social Security. So currently, as of 2024, only about $169,000 of your earnings are taxed for Social Security. Anything above that is not taxed. That wage cap is probably going to have to lift. I've heard some people say, well, let's just remove the wage cap for Social Security and make it unlimited. I don't suggest doing that, because if you lift the wage cap and make it unlimited, are you also going to offer unlimited benefits? Are you going to pay me out $10,000 a month in today's dollars in Social Security benefits? Are you going to pay Jeff Bezos, $5 million a month in Social Security benefits because you lifted his wage cap? If you're going to basically offer unlimited benefits, the system can't basically handle that. We need to keep a wage cap in place, but we need to raise it. So I, for my part, am willing to work longer and pay some new taxes, but it needs to be done in a very thoughtful way, and you cannot just completely eradicate the wage cap, because if you do that, I basically want unlimited benefits at that point, and the system can't handle that. Now, that's what Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zers are willing to contribute. The baby boomers are going to have to be willing to make some changes too. The spousal benefit needs to change. It needs to go away. This concept of one person basically providing benefits for two people, the math doesn't add up, and it's not a sustainable format. It also biases Social Security in favor of married couples. And I think over the next decade to decade and a half, the US tax system really needs to look at removing many of those biases simply because many Americans are not going to get married. And why should married people receive all the benefits? So, baby boomers, spousal benefits go away. And the second thing, Social Security needs to be fully taxed. Right now, only 50% or 85% of Social Security benefits are taxed. 100% needs to be taxed, and that money needs to be earmarked to go back into the Social Security system. Now, nobody wants changes. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. Nobody wants to work longer, and no one wants to see benefits disappear. But this is realistically what we're going to have to face as a society if we want Social Security to stick around. And I myself really want Social Security to stick around, not only for myself, but for the generations after me. When Social Security started in 1935 with Roosevelt's signing of the Social Security Act, no one could envision that we would become a nation of 330 million people. And no one could envision the population booms and busts that we've had as American systems. But here we are. Right now, we know that Social Security is going to become insolvent in about 2034, and we're at a juncture where we need to make some tough decisions. I think each generation needs to be willing to make adjustments to their concepts of retirement in order to make this work. I agree with the idea of getting rid of spousal benefits. It's outrageous that this benefit even still exists to this day, in my opinion. And I agree with the idea that younger generations just need to be prepared to work longer to make this system work for everybody. So there you have it. Tell me where I'm right, tell me where I'm wrong. If you found this information useful about Social Security, please like, please share, and please subscribe.